Hello everybody and welcome to IELTS Live Thursday. I'm still got these subtitles on here, so I hope they're going to behave themselves because sometimes they can be a little bit strange. Anyway, I said I would today talk about how to manage your time, because 99% of people who approach me about reading tell me that the biggest problem in reading is managing time. I don't agree with that. I think the biggest problem in reading is getting the right answers. So before I go through these slides about managing time, I want to just say to you that if you do a reading test and you allow as much time as you want, so it could be up to maybe 2 hours to do the reading, and you don't get at least 35 out of 40, then the problem is not the time, it's your ability to get the questions correct. So if you try that, and I always tell my the students I'm working one-on-one with to try this, to just do the reading, take as long as they want, and see how many questions they get right. Now, if you're looking for band 7 and above, and you take 1.5 to 2 hours to do the reading, and you don't get 35, around 35, 36 correct, then the problem is not the time. The problem is your ability to answer the questions. Correct with a longer time, then you can start looking at how to reduce the time and get it to 60 minutes. Okay, so let's say you can do the reading in 1.5 hours and you can get most of the questions correct. Now you need to think about how to reduce that time. Okay. I think my internet connection is a little up and down today, so I hope that this is not going to be too stuttery. Right, so you have 60 minutes for 40 questions, so that's around 1 minute per question, and that's not a lot of time if you time it. So what happens if you take longer to prepare the reading? So in the exam, typically, if it takes you longer to do the 40 minutes, then you might not finish the test. I was speaking to somebody just the other day, and she told me how she had 5 questions left at the end that she had to guess. So then your score is not out of 40, your score is out of 35, maybe 36 if you get one of them right locally. So you will be hard pressed to get a band 7. If you've only managed 35 questions, then you've got to get just about all of them correct to get a 7. The other thing that happens if the time starts running away and you're still on, say, passage 1, passage 2, is you start to panic. And if you're panicking, you will make a lot of mistakes. You won't find the answers. You'll start changing your answers and the examiner won't be able to read them. And I've seen all of this because I've worked with IELTS for a long time, and I was an examiner, although I didn't do the reading and listening. I did the writing and speaking. But I know if it's not clear, now if you're taking the computer, okay, the legibility is not a problem. But if you're taking the pen and paper, legibility is a problem. And if they cannot read it, they will just mark it wrong because they cannot read it, so they don't know if it's right or wrong. And this happens, and you can see it from the script that there's a lot of panic. Okay. You might get in a muddle. You might put the wrong answers on the wrong place. And I know students who've done this because they got in a panic. And of course, if your answers are in the wrong place, it's wrong. The examiners do not have time to check your answers and move them around. So this is what can happen. And you might start looking at other students and get distracted. I've heard this. Some of my students have told me that they got in a panic and then they could see other students who seemed to be doing it really well and they were worried, and that made them more worried. So you get distracted and you make even more mistakes. And then you'll find it very hard to focus on what you're doing and getting the right answers. So it's like a downward spiral, we call it. You start to have a problem with the time, and that then escalates into a problem with everything. And I'm sure many of you have had this experience, maybe in the exam, I hope not, but in your preparation and practice. I'm sure you've had this experience. So, what can we do? Right. It is easily possible. You may be thinking now, no, it isn't, but it is easily possible. If it were not possible, they wouldn't expect you to do it. But here are some of the reasons why it might be impossible or seem impossible. The first, and I mentioned this before, if you're not getting high scores, if you take a lot of time, then there could be a problem with your English level. Maybe you don't have enough vocabulary. Maybe you don't have enough knowledge of how reading works or how sentence structures are formed. So it could be that your general English skills and your reading skills in particular are not good enough. It could be that your techniques in IELTS for reading quickly are not good enough. Maybe you're not good at skimming or scanning or keywords. It could be that you haven't practiced enough. I see this a lot. People don't do enough practice. And it could be that you are a person that gets into a panic and you can't control your nerves. Now, that is controlled by practice. The more you practice, the higher your scores become, the more you'll be able to control your nerves. Okay, so the key is to keep moving. So number one, make sure you can actually get the score that you want if you take time to look at the questions. So if you want 7 and you can't get 7, if you can't get 35 out of 40, if you take an hour and a half to 2 hours, then you are not band 7 and you need to do more on your English before you start trying to time yourself. If you can get 35, 36 in an hour and a half or 2 hours, then you need to work on your timing, because it seems that you're capable of getting the score, but the timing is stopping you. And to get the 7, you have to manage both. You have to manage the timing and also the ability to answer the questions. So what so you can check any questions you're not sure about. And if you're in this position for 7, 7.5, 8, you should only have 2 or 3 questions you need to check. The others you should be absolutely clear about. You'll feel more relaxed and therefore you won't panic. You will know that you can finish it in the time. You'll be more systematic in the way you approach the questions. So if you come to a question that's taking too much time, you can leave it because you know you'll be able to come back. And therefore, overall, you'll feel more confident and then you won't get into a panic in the exam. However, this will not happen unless you practice it. It will not sometimes take a little bit more time. Headings, for example, because you have to skim the whole paragraph. Good skimming techniques will help to make this faster. And also my technique of not looking for the perfect answer. And if you don't know about that technique, go into the video archive in the group and check out the videos I've done on headings. There are 2 or 3 of them. Matching information into paragraphs. Again, you need good skimming techniques for this and scanning techniques too. Go into the video archive under media and you will find videos on this too. Matching beginnings and endings of a sentence. Sometimes that can slow you down because you're having to look everywhere for the sentence and then look for what matches. Any matching can take time potentially. And any classifications where you have to put them into different categories, A, B, or C. These can take time, and that's why you need good IELTS techniques to make sure that you use the time well. And also, do not look for perfect answers. Put down any that are possible and, you know, go for the easy ones first. Don't waste time on one question. This is absolutely critical. If your minute is up and you can't find the question, you have to move on. Move on. You can come back. Often what will happen is as you look for the other questions, you'll find the one you couldn't find. That happens all the time. If you're matching, let's say you're matching headings and you can only use the headings once. If you can't find the first one, move on. Maybe you'll find 2, 3, 4, and then when you come back to number 1, you've got fewer paragraphs to look at because some choices have already been used up. So with matching, it makes no sense to stick with a question. The more you find of the other ones, the easier it is to find that difficult one. Okay, you've got 3 occasions to go back and check. At the end of the section, so if there's a heading, for example, or a classification you can't find, at the end of that section, have another look. At the end of that passage, have another look. And then finally, at the end of the test, because if you work fast, you should be finished in 55 minutes, then you can look again. So there's lots of time. Panic does cause lots of mistakes. You can't focus. You've heard this expression, I use it a lot, a headless chicken, running around looking all over the text. It's not systematic. You have to keep all the options open until you finish all the answers in that section. I've said this before, choose the easiest ones. If there's a question with some good keywords like a number or a date or a name, try to do that one first because that will then help you to reduce the choices for the others that might be a bit more difficult. Pick more than one option. When I do headings, I don't say that's the perfect heading. I say it might be 1, it might be 3, it might be 6, and I put them all down and then I go to the next paragraph and do the same again. It might be 5, it might be 7. And if you do this, then gradually they'll start to sort themselves out. Check the videos I've done on headings, you'll see how that works. And keep telling yourself, there's plenty of time. I have plenty of time. Because that will help you not to panic. And if you do the 1 minute per question, there will be lots of time. Right, so let me come, that's all I wanted to say. Let me come and see if there are any questions about this. Thank you, Blue Pearl. No, so that's either as clear as mud, which means it's not clear, or it's crystal clear, which means it is clear. Okay, and just before I go, there's something I want to tell you about, which is that in January, I am looking to work with 6 to 8 new students. I have space because a lot of my students have got their IELTS done in 2021, which was our slogan for this year. And some of them have moved on now. And so I have space to work with a new batch of students. So if you are looking to get some help in January for your IELTS, and this group that I will be working with, we'll be working from January until the end of March. So if your exam is at the end of March, it would be a perfect thing for you to do. So I'll be giving you lots of hands-on help with this, correcting your writing, practicing the speaking, as well as working on reading and listening. So if it's something that you think you might like to do, then please just send me a DM, and we can get together and talk about how it will work and if it's the right thing for you. And also keep posted, because as Christmas is coming up, which is a big celebration for me, I'm going to have a very special offer to give to you. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you're interested in working with me in January, then just send me a DM and I will reach out to you and we can have a chat. And go and work on your timing for all of this, because it is really critical. Okay, thank you everybody for watching, and I hope to see you next week for another IELTS Live Thursday. Bye everybody.